Members and guests of the General Assembly, it is my pleasure and honor to present to you the Honorable Jared Polis, the Governor of the great state of Colorado.
Good morning, everyone. A month late, but nevertheless, here we are. Thank you, Senate President Garcia, Speaker Garnett, Leader Holbert, Leader McKeon, members of the General Assembly from across the great state of Colorado, Lieutenant Governor Primavera, Treasurer Dave Young, Commissioner of Education Anthis, Chief Justice Boatwright, our dedicated First Gentleman Marlon Reese, and joining us virtually, I want to acknowledge Attorney General Weiser, Secretary of State Griswold, Ute Mountain Ute Tribal Chairman Manuel Hart, Tribal Council members from the Southern Ute Indian Nation, Tribal Chairman Melvin Baker, and Tribal Council members, members of the State Board of Education, justices of the Supreme Court, members of the Cabinet, and my mom and dad. Hi. My fellow Coloradans, I'm mindful that as I speak to you this morning, many of you are facing some of the toughest challenges that we faced in our lives. Too many of us have lost someone close to us due to this terrible pandemic. Many of us have battled illness ourselves, as we have in our family, or dealt with the anxiety of having loved ones in the hospital without being able to be by their bedside to comfort them. Many others have lost jobs that not only filled days with purpose, but kept a roof over your family's head. These truly have been difficult times for humanity. And as if the pandemic and resulting global recession was not enough, in Colorado, we've also weathered record-breaking wildfires that have destroyed homes and claimed lives in a statewide drought. We've witnessed brutality inflicted on Black Americans and grappled with how to address systemic discrimination against people of color. And we've watched in shock and horror as the foundation of our democracy itself came under attack in Washington, D.C. by a violent mob intent on overturning the results of a free and fair election. In short, this has been one of the most challenging years of our lives as Coloradans and as Americans. But as Coloradans, we face down tough times with grit and overcome them together. When I became governor, I knew that leading our state through good times and bad, but especially through darkness, whenever and however it came, would be the most important and solemn responsibility of this job. Still, like many of us, I never envisioned this. I don't think any of us did. Gathering in this room, separated by plexiglass and wearing our masks, or that our kids, my kids too, would go months without hugging their grandparents. We've faced the unimaginable this year, and the state of the state, above all, is a reflection of our strength and resilience as Coloradans. We've worked together to protect our families and our communities by staying apart. We've endured loneliness. We've put off joyous weddings and birthdays and graduations. We've worn our masks to save lives and to keep our economy going. We've given what we could, and together we've raised over $24 million for the Colorado COVID Relief Fund, which has supported 1,000 nonprofit organizations in all 64 counties of our state. And there's so many Coloradans to acknowledge, but I want to acknowledge and thank just a few Coloradans here whose sacrifices stand out among so many unheralded daily acts of generosity and heroism. Of course, day after day, our brave healthcare workers put their own lives on hold, made incredible sacrifices to save so many souls. People like Tony, a nurse at UC Health in Greeley, who continued to show up for her patients while she herself was undergoing chemotherapy for stage 4 ovarian cancer. And Dr. Greg Golden, the son of a Colorado nurse and Army vet and father to 3 beautiful children, who not only spent many hours helping COVID patients in the intensive care unit at Banner Health in Greeley and Fort Collins, but when Colorado cases started going down, he went to Arizona and Wyoming to help patients in our neighboring states deal with their surge. He and his colleague, Dr. Cowden, created a consistent process to care for COVID patients. We're also joined by Nellie, an environmental services technician at UC Health Medical Center in Loveland, who took extra precautions over the last year to clean the rooms and sanitize the rooms that house COVID patients. And now she's committed to get this life-saving vaccine to as many Latinos as possible. Gracias, Nelly, por tu trabajo. I also want to thank our hospitals for their incredible service, from medical surge planning to vaccination clinics, large scale and small scale. Colorado's hospitals have truly been our partners in this pandemic, and I want to thank them on behalf of the state for that spirit of collaboration and partnership. We are joined today by Tony, Dr. Golden, Dr. Cowden, Nellie, and other healthcare workers. Please rise so we can express our appreciation. But the heroes of the pandemic are not only in our hospitals, they're really everywhere we look. The grocery store workers, ag, food supply workers, restaurant and retail workers, truck drivers who continue to do their job under the most trying of circumstances to put food on our tables. Our Colorado National Guard and law enforcement, first responders who put themselves on the line to protect our health and safety of our communities. Our census workers throughout the state who did everything they could to ensure an accurate count here in Colorado, because we know that everyone counts. And you, our legislators, who met under challenging conditions during this special session to get needed help and relief to those who needed it the most. And finally, I want to personally thank all those on my team who've led us bravely across uncharted waters, working day and night with faith and with persistence. Joining us today are Jill Hunsaker-Ryan of the Colorado Department of Public Health, Stan Hilke of the Colorado Department of Public Safety, Lisa Kaufman, my Chief of Staff, Rick Palacio, Strategic Advisor. And over the last year, Jill, Stan, Lisa, and Rick have led a coordinated pandemic response that prioritized data and scientific evidence, and I don't think they slept a wink. Thank you. I'm also deeply thankful for Colorado's COVID response team, our incident commander Scott Bookman and Mike Willis, our state epidemiologist Dr. Rachel Herlihy and other epidemiologists, our emergency management professionals, our state employees at the Department of Public Health and Environment, our public information officials, local elected officials, and folks who put their own expertise to work because they knew that our community and our country needed them, with a special debt of gratitude for our partners in local public health who are implementing the response on a day-to-day basis for their communities against all odds, working tirelessly to keep our communities safe. Many of the members of the COVID response team and local public health agencies are here today so that we can acknowledge them. Please rise. But tragically, as we all know, many of us personally, including myself, not everyone has made it through. As of today, Colorado's lost 5,655 souls to COVID-19. Each loss seared into the mind and collective memory of our state. And today, as many Coloradans observe Ash Wednesday, let us reflect on the past and each of our sacrifices over the last year. As Ecclesiastes 3:20 reads, "All go to one place, and all come from dust, and all return to dust. If we can have a moment of silence for those who we lost. In the words of poet Hannah Senesh, there are stars whose light reaches the earth only when they are gone and no more. And there are people whose sparkling memory illuminates the world when they themselves are no longer in our midst. These lights, which shine bright in the darkness of night, show us the lighted path. And I know that many in this chamber have lost friends and family members to COVID. I've lost friends as well, and they will forever live, and may their memory be a blessing for all of us. Of course, the greatest way to honor the immeasurable sacrifice of the last year is to do right by one another and prevent further unnecessary loss. Our goals in Colorado have remained the same since the early days of the pandemic: avoid overwhelming our hospitals, save lives, ensure economic stability for Colorado families and small businesses until a cure or a vaccine is readily available. Thankfully, as we speak, the vaccine is making its way into communities and into arms across our state. Today, Colorado has one of the highest vaccination rates and one of the lowest transmission rates in the country. We've worked day and night to ensure reliable and equitable distribution of the safe and highly effective vaccine, and I'm ecstatic to announce that we are well on our way towards reaching our goals. We have now vaccinated 60% of all Coloradans aged 70 and up in Colorado. And Coloradans aged 70 and up represent 78% of our deaths in Colorado, and we'll continue pursuing every possible opportunity, every innovation to get the life-saving vaccine to you and your loved ones, no matter where you live, no matter who you are. We're determined to leave no one behind. And we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still some months away from reaching it. We have to keep doing everything we can to save lives, preserve our healthcare capacity, sustain and grow our economy, prepare for a robust recovery. You know, there's an old proverb: when there's food on the table, there can be a lot of problems, but when there's no food on the table, there's only one problem. And many Coloradans have experienced this global pandemic not just as a public health crisis, but as an economic crisis. Together, we've taken extraordinary measures to help Colorado families and businesses, delivering critical housing assistance, food and utility assistance, tax relief, loans and grants for small businesses, and we've sent much-needed stimulus checks to hardworking Coloradans struggling to get by. I also want to express my deep appreciation for the federal COVID relief acts. We have two members of our federal delegation with us today, Congressman Crow and Congressman Neguse. Thank you. These bold measures have been made possible because of close, bipartisan collaboration. And I want to thank the leaders of the General Assembly, both this one and the last: Speakers Becker and Garnett, leaders McKean and Neville, President Garcia, Leader Holbert, and all the members who came together last December to support a package of legislation that put Colorado families and businesses first. We didn't let politics get in the way of action, and we should apply this spirit to all of our challenges, not just the unique ones that we faced this past year, but the ones that we've been grappling with for decades. When the immediate crisis ends, and it will end soon, we're not forced to go back to exactly how things were before. Here in Colorado, we have the boldness to imagine a better future, and we have the ability to bring it to life. A future where every child receives the education they deserve no matter where they live. A future where our roads and highways meet the needs of our dynamic and growing population. A future where each and every person in our state can access quality, affordable health care, not just now, but always. Let's build a future in which the natural Colorado beauty that inspires us is protected. Let's make good on the promise of a Colorado where people of all walks of life don't just get by, but thrive. And it starts with investments that will create good jobs and give our economy a boost, helping us recover faster and stronger. From tax relief and loans for small businesses to bolstering key industries like tourism and energy to investments in our main streets, the hearts of our communities. These are key proposals in my budget request that will jumpstart our economy, but we know that we can't stop there. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to not just build back to how things were, but to build back stronger and better than we were before the pandemic, to fundamentally reimagine Colorado's future and to transform that vision into reality. Colorado needs the best ideas from both sides of the aisle, from both parties, so that together we can rise to meet the challenge before us. Nothing could be more important. My budget request moves forward vital projects, starting with much-needed repairs on roads across Colorado, from the Eisenhower Tunnel to rural roads that our farmers and ranchers rely on. We're going to make it easier for Coloradans and visitors to travel our great state, access the ski resorts and public lands that we love, while reducing traffic and improving our vibrant, beloved main streets in the process. We'll invest in our rural communities, continue bringing broadband to every corner of our state so that students and small business owners from Fort Morgan to Fruita can seize opportunity. And we must work to protect the natural splendor of our state and the animals with whom we share it by maintaining our public lands and continuing to invest in wildlife crossings and migration corridors. These shovel-ready projects are tried and true measures to boost the economy in tough times, creating good jobs for hardworking Coloradans while improving the quality of life for all of us. Looking ahead, we see transportation changing before our very eyes. More deliveries, car shares, ride shares. And I look forward to working with all of you to accelerate electrification, expand multimodal transit options, save commuters money on gas, reduce emissions, and improve our air quality. As our transportation habits change, so should we change the way we support our transportation system. We should reduce vehicle registration fees to save people money and support the recovery, while modernizing the way we fund our transportation system. And I want to thank Senator Fenberg and Senator Winter and Speaker Garnett and Representative Gray for their leadership on this critical Colorado issue and their work to bring together the business community, local governments, and environmental advocates around the important need to reduce traffic. You know, one thing I think we all realized in the pandemic is how precious time is, and time lost in traffic is time away from kids and family and friends, and that's something we value even more than we did before the pandemic. And as Coloradans face tough times, we need to help folks get back on their feet, make life more affordable in our state. From job training to affordable housing to reducing the tax burden on middle-class families. From the start of my administration, we've worked together to make Colorado's tax code more fair by getting rid of special interest tax breaks that benefit the few and using those savings to lower taxes for the rest of us. This year, I propose that we eliminate the business personal property tax for tens of thousands of small businesses, reducing paperwork and protecting them from onerous and costly tax requirements. By eliminating the business personal property tax, it will save small businesses time and money and let them focus on what matters, their customers, their service, their products competing in the marketplace. To help hardworking Coloradans, I propose that we double the Earned Income Tax Credit and provide up to $600 in tax credit per child for nearly 200,000 families in our state through the Colorado Child Tax Credit. And I propose that we stop taxing seniors' Social Security benefits. You know, many seniors live on fixed income. They've already borne the brunt of the health side of this pandemic. Seniors live on fixed income. We should not tax the Social Security benefits that they've earned by paying in and that they depend on. With the leadership of Senator Moreno and Senator Hansen, Representative Weissman, and Representative Sirota, I'm confident that we will get it done. All of this, along with the voter-approved reduction in the state income tax, will deliver the most substantial and comprehensive tax relief in decades for hardworking Coloradans and small businesses. This is why we're sent here by the voters, to take on the big challenges and make changes that will improve the quality of life in our great state. Just look at how, over the past few years, we've broken down barriers that held too many young families back and made Colorado one of the best places in America to raise a family. Family leave, childcare, kindergarten, preschool. And I want to thank the bipartisan coalition of lawmakers who supported putting Proposition EE on the ballot last year. Because of your work and the support of over 2/3 of Colorado voters, we can now combat one of the worst challenges confronting our children, smoking and vaping, while investing in one of the best things for our children, universal preschool. You know, and especially in this day of, time of division, it's so wonderful to see more than 2/3 of Colorado voters come together around supporting preschool for our kids. And I look forward to working with the General Assembly to continue to make progress for families. Now, as we know, this has been a school year unlike any other. And tragically, the effects have rippled through society, not only impacting our children's education, but straining families and, in particular, forcing millions of women across our country out of the workforce. Many parents, disproportionately women, have had to choose between working and caring for their children at home. And sadly, but not surprisingly, women of color have been disproportionately impacted with an 8% decline in labor workforce participation over the last year. When women across Colorado, across America suffer, our communities and our states suffer too. I was fortunate to be surrounded by strong women throughout my life. Many of you have heard me speak about my mother. Many of you have met my mother. She's a very important part of my life, and it's been nearly a year since she's been able to hug her grandkids. When I was growing up, she was not only a best-selling poet, but also president of the small family publishing company she founded with my father. My grandmother, June, was sales manager of the family company for 30 years. She cooked amazing food, she knitted up a storm, and she worked long weeks in the office and was loved and feared by sales reps around the country. And now I'm the father of a very strong-willed 6-year-old daughter, and I owe it to her to do everything in my power to support Colorado women, and yes, men too, as they work to balance the already difficult task of raising families in this time of uncertainty. And while, of course, we need in-person school now for our kids, we also need it for Colorado moms and dads. It's simple. Our efforts in Colorado to support families fall short if we can't ensure that Colorado women have a secure place in our economy. That's why it's so important. With the leadership of Senator Danielson, Senator Pedersen, now Senator Buckner, Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez, we passed a law to ensure that women are finally paid the same as men in Colorado. we recover, we'll continue to grow economic opportunities for women across our state, support hardworking parents by keeping kids in the classroom. This crisis has forced us to realize the value of things that we once took for granted, like having a safe place where our children can learn and thrive and play and grow. As parents of two young children, Marlon and I share the newfound appreciation that so many Coloradans feel for teachers and other school professionals who've gone above and beyond to make sure our kids are learning under challenging circumstances. Teachers like Michelle Grimes, a fourth grade teacher at Clayton Elementary in Englewood. Michelle has risen to the occasion, as so many educators have, in her case, by spending hours looking for students who fell off remote learning, getting them back on track. She helped organize a drive-through gift drive for her students and their families over Christmas, sharing a little joy during tough times. And I'm so excited to express our appreciation for all Colorado educators and to welcome Michelle Grimes, who's with us today. Thank you for your commitment, Michelle, to Colorado students. I salute all the children, parents, and educators who've done their best to adapt. It's why we should continue the General Assembly's bipartisan efforts, led by Representative McCluskey and Senator Lundeen, and their work through the School Finance Interim Committee, to make funding more equitable and student-centered so that every Colorado child has a chance to succeed. We should also seize this opportunity to pay down our education budget deficit to the lowest levels in more than a decade, because improving education is so important. But we know that it's only one part of our obligation to create a more just society where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. In the past 2 years, the legislature has taken tremendous bipartisan steps to correct inequities in criminal justice and make us all safer, including bail reform, sentencing reform, juvenile justice reform, and police reform. But the ongoing effort to ensure opportunity and justice means more. It means taking our leads from Representative Herod and Senator Buckner to stop the school-to-prison pipeline by investing more in school counselors and less in overly harsh punishments. It means honoring those Coloradans who've bravely served our country in the United States military, yet been dismissed and prevented from receiving certain state veterans benefits because of who they love. With the leadership of Senator Moreno and Representative Ortiz and Adjutant General McClellan, we'll start to right this wrong, and I will be excited to see the Restoration of Honor Act reach my desk. And it means partnering with Senator Gonzalez and Representative Gonzalez-Gutierrez to ensure that state data isn't used to enforce a broken and inhumane immigration system. And it means working with tribal leaders and strengthening our government-to-government relationships so that we can tackle the unique hurdles facing our Native American communities and tribal nations. It means addressing our unaffordable healthcare system. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane, end quote. You know, because it's really about our lives. It's about breathing. It's about being alive. And that was true in 1966, and it's true over 50 years later, especially in the midst of a pandemic. When the virus struck last year, we moved swiftly to boost our hospital capacity. We took swift action to prevent folks from losing their coverage, getting more Coloradans enrolled in Medicaid, extending the enrollment period for the state health insurance exchange. And thanks to the bipartisan work of this legislature and the work of our talented Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, who heads our Office of Saving People Money on Health Care, we're able to make great progress. And I want to thank the legislature, especially the members of the Joint Budget Committee, for continuing the reinsurance program, which has successfully reduced rates on the individual market by over 20% across the state, even more in rural areas of Colorado. And we've made significant progress, but too many families still struggle to afford the care they need, and we look forward to working with this legislature on measures to save people money on health care by passing a bill carried by Senator Juarez Lewis, Senator Gonzalez, Representative Caraveo, Representative Kennedy, to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. And we also look forward to adding an affordable Colorado option that gives Coloradans, especially in rural areas, more choice and savings when it comes to selecting a health care plan. And I thank Representative Roberts and Mullica and Senator Donovan for their ongoing leadership on saving people money on health care. This pandemic has only further illuminated the stark inequities that Coloradans of color and those in underserved communities face. And that's why each week we're committing portions of our vaccine supply to community health centers who every day deliver health care to Colorado's most vulnerable, often uninsured. We've also set up 58 vaccine pop-up clinics in rural and urban underserved areas to ensure access regardless of zip code, of immigration status, that no one is left behind. And I want to thank the Black Caucus and Latinx Caucus for their incredible partnership on this important issue and our continuing work to address ongoing disparities. We can and we will do better. This pandemic has forced us to be creative as we've reimagined healthcare. Think, for example, of telehealth, including behavioral telehealth, which isn't just a useful innovation in a time of social distancing, it's a convenient tool for folks who want to receive quality care from the comfort of their own homes. It can literally be life-saving for many Coloradans in rural areas who may live too far away from specialists or doctors and clinics and hospitals. And I also want to thank the Behavioral Health Task Force, which under the capable leadership of Michelle Barnes, developed a blueprint that will streamline our mental health services, a far too often overlooked area of healthcare. And I appreciate the bipartisan sponsors, Representatives Young and Pelton, and Senator Fields and Senator Gardner, for taking leadership on this vital issue. In last year's speech, I thanked our brave Colorado firefighters who answered the call when Australia needed help to contain their worst wildfires in history. Months later, the world watched as those same firefighters combated the 3 largest wildfires in the history of our state. As our homes and communities burned, panicked families fled for shelter, leaving behind what in many cases had taken them a lifetime to create. And I'd like to take a moment to thank our incredible firefighters who tirelessly labored to save every life, every home, every piece of property, even in the midst of a global pandemic. Our very own Department of Natural Resources Director Dan Gibbs answered the call as a certified wildland firefighter, fighting alongside many brave men and women at the Grizzly Creek and Cameron Peak fire. And we're grateful to fire chiefs and sheriffs who led these efforts to protect our communities in a time of great need. I'm honored to be joined here today by somebody who had a major role in fighting 2 of the major fires, Larimer County Sheriff Justin Smith. Justin, Sheriff. Sheriff Smith didn't sleep a wink in summer or fall and helped lead the efforts on the Cameron Peak and East troublesome fires that threaten Estes Park. And to the many others who are joining us virtually, we thank you for your leadership and your service. I want to thank Senator Rankin, Representative McCluskey, and all the members of the Joint Budget Committee for supporting wildfire response and mitigation, which will help give Colorado the tools we need to catch and suppress wildfires before they get out of hand. But wildfire mitigation is only one piece of the puzzle. How many homes and businesses must we lose and lives before we resolve to meet the threat of climate change with the seriousness that it demands? Transitioning to renewable energy isn't just the right thing to do for our health and safety, it's the smart thing for jobs, our economy, and for consumers. That's why I ran on a platform of 100% renewable energy for Colorado by 2040, and that's why my administration has taken bold action to move rapidly towards this goal. The private sector is already turning away from fossil fuels and looking forward to a clean energy future. To date, we've successfully secured commitments from electric utilities representing more than 99% of the generation in our state to reduce emissions 80% or more by 2030 in just 9 years. Colorado is a national leader in green energy jobs, the fastest growing job sector, precisely because we've embraced the opportunities of renewable energy. Addressing climate change isn't just essential to protecting our health and building our economy. It's an essential part of protecting Colorado's iconic public lands and the biodiversity that we celebrate. As we've weathered this pandemic, we've learned to appreciate our public lands even more for the sanctuary that they provide. Embracing the outdoors, being able to get away from the trials and tribulations of the daily grind has always been a big part of the Colorado way of life. And when the crisis struck, our vast public lands became our escape, a much-needed retreat where we could go to feel normal again, to feel free. Our public lands are a treasure that we must never take for granted and always work to protect. And I want to thank the legislature, and particularly the leadership of President Garcia, Senator Heisey, Majority Leader Escar, and Representative Will, for providing the resources to open Fisher's Peak, Colorado's newest state park. We are excited for Fisher's Peak and the potential it holds for the southern Colorado economy, but it's just the start of what we can do together to keep Colorado wild. Let's go even further to protect these amazing places for years to come and leave a lasting legacy for future generations. By offering all Colorado vehicle owners the opportunity to purchase a park and public lands pass when they register their vehicle, we can expand affordable access to our great outdoors and ensure our state parks have a sustainable source of revenue to improve trails, expand camping, open new state parks. This kind of innovation embodies the Colorado way of solving problems, and I thank Senate Majority Leader Fenberg for his partnership on this important initiative. In the coming months, we'll spend long hours together working to build back not just to where we used to be, because we know that wasn't good enough, but to a place that's stronger and a place that's more inclusive. No more Band-Aids over gaping wounds. We in this chamber have the power to make bold, transformational change that ensures our state lives up to our highest potential, and we can and we will seize that opportunity. To quote my favorite Star Trek captain, the best Star Trek captain, Jean-Luc Picard, quote, "Things are only impossible until they are not," end quote. If the problems we face now were ever intractable, today they are not. If at some point in the past we lacked the means or the will to tackle them, today we do not. Over the last year, we faced a global pandemic, historic wildfires, a statewide drought, an unprecedented attack on our democracy, and now we have an opportunity for rebirth, for renewal, to rise from the ashes to fulfill the promise of a Colorado for all. Fulfilling that promise means historic investments in our people, our infrastructure, in the natural riches and beauty that surround us. It means helping Colorado businesses grow and create good-paying jobs. It means eliminating tax loopholes that benefit the few and well-connected while reducing taxes for businesses and hardworking Coloradans. It means ensuring Colorado is the best state in the country, the best, to start and raise a family by offering paid family leave, universal preschool, kindergarten, and truly affordable higher education. It means saving people money on health care. It means ending the system that for too many generations has allowed the color of your skin, your gender, ability, who you love, to determine the type of health care you get. Getting equal pay for equal work and whether our justice system will treat you fairly. It's often been said during the pandemic that we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. It's time to ensure that everybody has a sturdy boat to weather any storm that comes our way. As Coloradans, we rise up. We overcome our challenges, not because overcoming is inevitable, because it's not, but because we choose to do the work to fulfill our responsibility. It's who we are. It's what we do. So the state of the state, this past year we've been bruised, battered, and shaken to our core, but nevertheless, the state of Colorado remains strong. This terrible virus isn't quite done with us yet, but we're working hard to end this pandemic, and coming out of this traumatic year, we're poised for bold transformational change. If we seize the opportunity here in this chamber, we can live up to our fullest potential to truly create a Colorado for all. There's a lot of work ahead, but we're more than ready to take it on. God bless you all, God bless Colorado, and God bless the United States of America.